Peace.
What up with it, bruh?
How you feeling?
Shit, man, trying to beat this damn heat.
No doubt, no doubt. First off, I'd like to shout out SJ for putting this together.
Oh, that's right. That's the homie right there.
Yes, sir. Thank you for this opportunity to give you your flowers. Been a big fan since day one. You put in a lot of work, and I'd like to acknowledge all of the history of SCC, Big Prodigy, and work our way up to what you currently have going on in 2021.
Sure.
For everybody logging on, this is History Lesson, episode 133. I'm with Big Prodigy from the notorious South Central Cartel. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
It's all good, bruh, man. Thanks for having me on.
No doubt. If you could take us back for those who may not know and are new to you, and for those who need a reminder, can you take us back to where you were born and raised?
Man, born and raised in South Central LA.
Day in
Straight
the
up.
life of young Prodigy growing up as a teenager.
Bruh. Me growing up, man, when I grew up in the streets of South Central, it was crucial. It was when I grew up, my teenage years was when LA was like the gang capital. You know what I mean? At that time, the gang situation was here. This is where it was cracking the most at. You know what I mean? So of course I grew up in it, watching it. You know what I mean? Lived through it. You know, when I walked out my front door, those was the dudes that I was looking up to. You know what I mean? I grew up maybe 80, a couple blocks from Freeway Rick.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I grew up, actually, I'm an East Side cat for a long time now, but my young years, I grew up on the West Side.
Right.
You know, I grew up on 89th and Figueroa. And
What would, oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
go ahead. What you finna say?
What would you consider some of your biggest obstacles you had to face? I know you said you were in gang territory. What were some of the biggest obstacles as a teenager you think you had to face?
Man, me growing up, bro, you name an obstacle. You feel me? It was all of the obstacles. You know what I mean? Just growing up, period, with nothing. Not having nothing. You feel me? My mama had 7 kids. I was the oldest boy. You know what I mean? I got a big sister. And just no pops. Pops wasn't there. And some of the stuff that I had to watch, witness, even from within my own, inside of my own house, like watching my mom go through a lot of stuff, you know, that young kids shouldn't have to, you know, deal with. So what that did to me was, at a very, very young age, it made me feel like I had to do something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I can't just sit around, because I used to be, as a young dude, as a very young dude, I was a smart kid. I was into the school thing. I was a gifted kid in school and all of that. You know what I mean? But at the same time, and I mean, my young years, dude, I would go out and play football, baseball, basketball with the homies and all that. But I also like to stay in the house and read books. I was the kid that wanted to stay in the house and read the books at a young age. Then, you know, that's how I got into music. You know, my brother, Young Pride, his father had like a nice vinyl collection. And I would sit in the house and listen to the records. You know what I mean? That's what got me, that's part of what got me into, you know, a certain type of music. But it didn't last too long. You know what I mean? I had to get out in them streets at a certain point, because it just wasn't cool. You know, the situation, the stability got, you know, bad, you know what I mean? And I ended up out there, man.
Right. You talked about that vinyl collection. What was Prodigy listening to early on that was influencing him?
It was the funks. It was the funky stuff, man. You know, of course, Parliament. You know, he has some Barcades. I listened to a lot of that. You know what I mean? Ohio Players. You know what I mean? It was the funky stuff, bruh. He had some funky in this collection. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much what I gravitated towards.
can you take us back to the scene in South Central Los Angeles? What was the scene like musically coming up? What were you witnessing before you even got into music?
Music wise?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you know, of course, like everybody else, my first introduction to the music was, you know, the Sugar Hill Gang. You know what I mean? Rapper's Delight. You know what I mean? I used to go to, I had a homeboy, one of my homeboys named Dietrich. You know, when I first started getting interested in messing around with the music, I would go to his house, you know what I mean? And that's when I was first starting to dabble around in it. Before even I started taking it serious, I rapped with some of my homies in my neighborhood, you know what I mean? My early experiences, but my first hip hop, listening to the hip hop, it was the Sugar Hill Gang, Rapper's Delight, for me. You know
Right.
what I mean? And then, of course, out of that comes the Curtis Blows and the LL Cool J, all of the East Coast stuff. Because at the time, you know, on our side, we didn't have a whole lot. But, you know, as the LA Dream Teams and, you know, the Ice-T's and some of our OGs started, I was listening to that as well.
Right. So at what point did you get involved with hip hop? A lot of MCs would say they were break dancers, DJs. How did you first get into hip hop?
And I was doing crazy shit in the streets, you know, but I had started rapping. But I was one of them cats. Not a lot of people knew that I rapped because I was so involved with other things, you know what I mean? And I wasn't pressing the rap part, you know what I mean? So I was kind of like one of them cats that was quietly, you know what I mean, getting my rhymes up. I had a whole, you know, like everybody else, I had a whole briefcase full of rhymes, you know, because I just was writing. I didn't know what I was going, if I was going to do nothing with it. You know what I mean? But I would just write because I enjoyed it. You know what I mean? And I remember, man, and there's some crazy, crazy stuff, man. So I remember being in one of my spots back when I was doing the street shit, right? And a cat came through my spot. You know, he was smoking that shit, right? So the dude, like, man, I rap. You know, I give you some raps for some. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, you rap, really? And the motherfucker was fire. It was fire, right? Like at this time in my life, like the boy he was doper than me at the time. You know what I mean? And so, you know, I mean, of course I didn't do that, but you know what I'm like, but that shit kind of motivated. I'm like, this motherfucker out here doing all this and he fire. You know what I mean? So, you know, I didn't start taking the rap serious, man, till, you know, I got caught up a few times. In the streets and just got tired of dealing with that situation. And I'm like, man, it got to be something else for me out here because I ain't trying to get stuck in the pen. You know what I mean? Go to jail when I'm just stuck, you know? So after dealing with that a little bit, I decided, man, let me just give it a shot. You know what I mean? I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know how I'm going to make this dream a reality, but I got serious about it, man, and I had a couple of homies, man, that just, one of my homeboys' name was Lover G, and good talking dude. You know what I mean? So, you know, he was around me, and he just, with his mouthpiece, man, you know, I had started doing my music, you know what I mean? This is after I had got in with a good producer, because early on, it was my homeboy West Side. He had a little drum machine. You know what I mean? We would go over there and he would make program beats and we would just get down. You know what I mean? Just to the beats, you know, because at that time, that's pretty much what it was anyway. Or
Right.
me and him, we would rig up a microphone to the tape deck and we'd freestyle over Planet Rock or whatever it was at the time. We was getting off to whatever. It was Rockbox, Run DMC, you know, something LL Cool J had out there, because LL really inspired us a lot too. You know, when he came, you know, it was a whole nother level. You know
Right.
what I mean? So, and I did the same thing with my cousin, Havoc the Rhyme son. His father had a nice system, because I ain't had no damn system in my house. You feel me? These cats had systems at their house. So I would go to wherever I could go just to get my hands on just the outlet. You know what I mean? I would be on the corner doing some shit, and I would leave for 2 or 3 hours just to go to somebody's house that I knew had something. You know what I mean? Just to start polishing up my craft, man. And then I ended up getting with one of the guys that was the DJ in the SEC. His name was Chaos, DJ Chaos. Chaos had always been, you know, I admired Chaos from on every level because Chaos was a real street dude, like a real street dude. I watched growing up. I watched him as a kid outside, gangstified, you know, with the gangster shit. But at the same time, you will see him on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in khaki suits. Then on Saturday, you will see this guy walking through the hood, suited down, because he was also in a dance crew called the Majestics. So he was in the entertainment as well. You know what I mean? So, you know, at a certain point, this guy found out that I was rapping, and he gravitated towards me. And I started getting with him, and I'm just polishing up my craft, you know what I mean? Along the way, he had a drum machine and some keyboards, and you know, we just got in his room and we started making noise, and all of this is what led up to eventually meeting Havoc the Mouthpiece from the South Central Cartel. And at this point in time, you know, this is when the briefcase was thick. You know what I mean? I'm ready now. You know what I mean? And I seen Mouthpiece on 108th in Vermont. And dude seen me sitting outside on the porch writing some rhymes. And he was like, "What you doing?" I'm like, "I'm writing some raps." He was like, "Oh, you rap?" And then, you know, of course, he gave me the whole spiel about his father being Squirrel from the Shy Lights. You know, so of course, that from that point, me and Havoc the Mouthpiece began pursuing what we was pursuing. You know, and that was actually that was the initial beginnings of us doing the Havoc and Prodigy stuff.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So we got into that. We started doing that. You know what I mean? Havoc was also a great talker. Great talker. So, you know, Havoc used to be calling the Radio K-Day all the time, talking to Lisa Cannon, Greg Mack. You know what I mean? Just getting in good with them. And eventually, we went down to K-Day with one of our little beat and rhyme. You know, it wasn't produced. It was just what we had. You feel me? So we go down there and we meet a guy, Ken Neal, I think his name was. It was a guy named Ken Neal. So we sitting up in K-Day, and Ken Neal see us sitting there. He like, "What y'all do?" And he like, "Man, we rap." We a rap group, right? And Ken Neal like, "Oh, really?" Right? So him and Havoc get to shooting the shit. Comes to find out, Ken Neal has some kind of affiliation with the Shy Lights. At some point, he was something with the Shy Light. So when he found out that Havoc was Squirrel's son, he started trying to work with us, right? So he connected us with a cat. This dude's name was Chris Johnson. He called himself Chris Jamarama Johnson, this white guy. At the time, what Chris Johnson would do was, Chris Johnson was like a pro at remaking songs, right? I think at the time, LL Cool J had I Need Love out. Chris Johnson had produced a song called You Had Love with a female rapping on it. He would do those mock songs. You know what I mean?
Right.
But the dude that was the first time I ever seen a real computer. You know, he connected us with Chris. So once we got with Chris Johnson, Jamarama is what we called him, that was it. The music, it jumped. It jumped from just having a beat with me just rapping to having real music. You know what I mean? So we started doing songs with Chris, and the music, the quality of the music just jumped like tremendously. You know what I mean? So at this point, we starting to hear this music, and we like, man, we probably can really do this. Mind you, this is right at the beginning of when the NWAs and, you know, now the West Coast is coming into their own, you know, this hardcore rhyme, the street life that we was really living was becoming the music, the soundtrack, you know what I mean, that people was gravitating towards to a certain extent. So, man, we got with Chris, and Chris gave us a couple of dope joints, and I remember listening to it, and then, you know, I would listen to the music we had, and then I would listen to NWA or or something Easy E have out, or King T, or at the time these guys was killing it. And I'm like, bro, we need something else. Like, even though I loved what Chris did, quality was dope, everything, it wasn't grimy enough. You feel me? It wasn't, you know, because I'm still trying to find my identity. I'm trying to fall into my zone. You feel me? And
Right.
I loved what we did. It just wasn't hardcore enough for me musically. It wasn't grimy enough. So that's how I started producing. Because I started coming up with the ideas. Like, look, Chris, I want you to sample this, loop this, you know, add that. And that, not knowing it, I started producing, not even knowing that's what I was doing. All I was really trying to do was get us that vibe we needed to elevate us so that we can get us a record deal or something. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that was the beginnings of me as a producer. That's also where the name Prodigy came from. Because when I started, because at the time my name wasn't Prodigy. My early years, it wasn't Prodigy. You know what I mean?
Right.
The first album I ever made, my name was not Prodigy. It was Mayhem at that particular time. I was in the group. DJ Chaos' name was still Chaos, and my name was Mayhem. Me and him was a group. That was my first record I ever made. You know what I mean? You know, on that album is a lot of that early, the stuff that Chris produced. It had more of a, I'm gonna say, a R&B-ish vibe to it. You know what I mean? Because he was a real music player. He wasn't like a sampler, etc. He was like a real player. So the music, it took on, even though I was talking that shit on it, it still had that vibe to it. You know what I mean?